Nashville, Tennessee, country music capital of the world, home of the Grand Ole Opry, where singers and dreamers come seeking stardom. Join me as we learn about the lives and careers of those who built this town on Classic Country Backstories. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Classic Country Backstories. I'm Colleen Gallagher. Today, we have a special backstory for you. This country legend has had 36 top 10 hits over the last 6 decades and came to be one of country music's most successful singer-songwriters. His name is Bill Anderson. Jim and I had the honor of spending some time with Bill and talking with him about his life and career. We will use clips from this interview along with some information from Bill's book, Whisperin' Bill Anderson, An Unprecedented Life in Country Music. Our talk with Bill began in a conversation about his anniversary at the world-famous Grand Ole Opry. I'm so thrilled to be sitting here talking with country legend, Grand Ole Opry star Bill Anderson. How are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you took the time to speak with us. I know you are so busy right now. First of all, I want to talk about, you have recently had your 62nd anniversary of being a member of the Grand Ole Opry. What is that like?
Well, I came here when I was 4 years old.
I understand.
It's wonderful to have celebrated 62 years, but I think what I'm the proudest of in that is that I have now been an Opry member longer than anybody. Nobody in the history of the Opry has been a member consecutive years without ever leaving and coming back that I have. 62 years. I've seen a lot of it come and go. I've seen a lot of changes. I've been very fortunate and very blessed to have had a wonderful life and a wonderful career. And I'm very thankful and very grateful for it all.
Born James William Anderson III, November 1st, 1937, in Columbia, South Carolina. His parents were James William Anderson Jr. and Elizabeth, known as Lizzie. He had one sister, 4.5 years younger, named Mary Elizabeth. The family lived in Columbia until Bill was in the second half of the 3rd grade, moved to Griffin, Georgia for a short time before moving to Decatur, Georgia. His dad opened an insurance agency, Jim Anderson and Company, all forms of insurance. His mom was a homemaker. This is what Bill told me about his early years. So you were born in Columbia, South Carolina, is that
That's
correct?
what they tell me. I don't remember.
But you spent most of your life in Georgia, correct?
My parents were from Georgia, and they wanted to move back and be closer to their families. And so when I was 8 years old, my family moved from South Carolina to Georgia. I grew up loving 3 things in my life. I loved writing, any kind of writing. I loved sports, and I loved country music. So I knew from an early age, somewhere along in my early teens, I knew I was going to do some combination of writing, sports, and country music. And I got a job working as a sports writer for a newspaper in Georgia. And I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to be a sports writer. And then I couldn't get all these country songs out of my head. And I thought, well, maybe I can try to write 1 or 2 of those. And it just kind of happened. And I fell into writing country songs, and that's how I got into the music business, of course, was as a songwriter.
Anderson began college at the University of Georgia in the fall of 1955. Here's what he had to say about this time in his life. While you were in college, you also worked as a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that come about?
Well, I wanted to be on the radio. I wanted to do anything I could in mass communications. If I wasn't going to be writing for a newspaper, I wanted to work at a radio station or a television station or something. So I bugged every little tiny radio station I could find in the state of Georgia till one of them decided to hire me. I think just to get rid of them, it'll shut me up.
Worked at the radio station while you were in college?
A little town called Commerce, Georgia. I lived in the tallest building in Commerce, which was 3 stories high, a little hotel wrote a song called City Lights up on the roof of that hotel, and that's what got Bill Anderson in the music business.
So I also understand you brought up sports. I understand you were very athletic, and you thought seriously about becoming a baseball player.
I was a left-handed pitcher of sorts.
Wow. So what made you choose music over baseball?
I don't know that I chose music over baseball. Music may have chosen me over baseball. I'm not really sure. I tell you one thing, people ask me today, they say, well, did you ever think about how your life would have turned out if you had gone into baseball instead of country music? I said, yeah, I'd have been washed up 40 years ago.
So the roof of the Hotel Andrew Jackson in Commerce, Georgia, is where Bill Anderson's first hit, City Lights, was written. The song was completed in one night. 20 years later, Commerce erected a monument in honor of Bill Anderson and proclaimed it Bill Anderson Day. Anderson recorded the self-penned City Lights for T&T Records in 1957. In May of 1958, the song was picked up and recorded by Ray Price on the Columbia label. Price took the song to #1 on the Billboard country charts. It remained on the charts for 32 weeks. Well, I'm going to go back to City Lights. How did City Lights come to be?
Up on top of that little hotel, looking up at the stars and down at what few lights there were in Commerce, Georgia, and using an imagination.
Wow. So yeah, you wrote City Lights at 19 years old, I believe. In 1958, Ray Price recorded the song on Columbia Records after you had recorded it, correct? Is that correct? And it went to #1 on the Billboard charts. So how long had you been writing at that time, at 19?
I probably started making up songs when I was 9 or 10 years old, about the time I started learning a few chords on the guitar. It just always kind of came natural to me. I'd be sitting around the house and singing a Hank Williams song or a Carl Smith song or a Webb Pierce song, and next thing I knew, I was trying to make them up myself. And so, I mean, they were terrible. They were what you'd expect from somebody 9 or 10 years old. But I always, like I said, writing was one of my loves. I liked writing anything. In school, I was the nerd. I was the kid that loved it when the teacher said, go home and write an essay. I want you to write 2 pages. I'd say, can I write 3? Because I just always loved to write. And taking my love for country music and my love for writing, I was just able to put the two together.
So what was that first hit like to you? You were still in Georgia, correct, when it was recorded and it hit?
Yeah. Still working at the radio station. Every once in a while, I'd sneak Ray Price's record in and play it, like every 30 minutes.
Yes. I did read in your book because it was not a country radio station that you were working in at first.
Well, the first station was, and I got fired from the first station for playing country music, and then I got hired at another station where they wanted me to play country music. That's what I loved.
Oh my gosh. And also, during that time, I think you met up with Roger Miller and formed a friendship.
I can't get away from him.
I'm so glad we have him in the background with us.
All these years, I still can't get away from him.
I feel like he's looking over us today.
He's watching over us and taking care of us.
That's right. So when did you actually move to Nashville?
I moved to Nashville in 1960.
Okay.
January of 1960. It was the new decade and the new year and the new month, and came here in January of 1960, and I've been here ever since.
So when did you get the contract with Decca? Was it as soon as you came or before you came?
Well, actually, before I came. I was still in Commerce, and I had made a few trips to Nashville. Actually, Roger was a big part of my early life and my early career, because I met him when he was about 18 years old, and I was about 17 or so. He was in the Army and was stationed in Atlanta. He wasn't carrying a gun, no, he was carrying a guitar and playing in a country band. And we kind of made a deal with each other because we met and just hit it off immediately. And we both wanted to come to Nashville and write songs. We both wanted to come to Nashville and see if we could get into the music business, recording artists and things like that. And we kind of made a deal. Roger said, well, if I get there first, I'll help you. And if you get there first, you help me. I said, great, that's the deal. So Roger got here first. He came and he was working as a fiddle player in Minnie Pearl's band and traveling around, and he met a lot of people, and he met a man named Buddy Killen, who had a publishing company called Tree Music, or Tree Publishing Company, and Roger became a writer there. And then when City Lights hit, I came to Nashville, and Roger introduced me to Buddy Killen. I became a writer for Tree Publishing, and then Buddy Killen opened the doors for me to sign a contract with Decca Records, and a lot of things just fell into place.
Wow. Bill went to work writing songs for his first record. His first release was a self-penned, straight-ahead country ballad similar to City Lights called That's What It's Like to Be Lonesome. Background vocalists on the song were Buddy Killen and Donnie Young, who later changed his name and became famous as Johnny Paycheck. The song climbed to the number 12 spot on the charts, but once again, Ray Price recorded this song and took it to the top of the charts, and Bill Anderson had another hit as a songwriter. Bill began touring with Grand Ole Opry star George Morgan. He continued to write songs and record. After completing college, Bill moved to Nashville permanently. In 1961, Bill released Po Folks, the song that really took off for Anderson. It was the one that really brought him to popularity as an entertainer. Then Ott Devine, manager of the Grand Ole Opry, called Anderson and asked him if he would like to be a member. Bill said it was like being asked if he wanted to go to heaven. Bill was inducted as the 61st member of the Grand Ole Opry shortly thereafter. In early 1962, Bill Anderson wrote and recorded a song entitled Mama Sang a Song. It was a semi-autobiographical recitation. This was Bill Anderson's first number one as a singer. Bill's next song was a massive hit. Still was written as a result of a past relationship that Bill had with a girl many years before. He met back up with her years later, then wrote the song in remembrance of his old feelings of her. Reaching number one on the country charts, number 5 on the pop charts, he sold 1 million copies, was translated to several different languages, and recorded by many other artists, including James Brown. Billboard named Still Song of the Year. Cashbox said it was the most programmed country record of the year on radio. Bill stated in his autobiography that this song changed his life. So then you recorded some amazing songs. Po Folks, Mama Sings a Song. I love that song.
Thank you.
Tip of My Fingers. Back then it was Tip of My Fingers, correct? Wild Weekend, Bright Lights in Country Music, and of course your mega hit Still. And the list goes on and on and on. Did you ever dream of having the kind of success that you've had?
Not when I was sober. No, you don't. I guess yes and no. I guess it's such a pipe dream that you figure it happens to other people and it's never going to happen to you. I mean, little Bill Anderson from Commerce, Georgia. Those things don't happen. But, I just kept putting one foot in front of the other and just going at it a day at a time. And one door would open and there'd be another one there, and I'd knock and see if I could get behind that door and see what was behind door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. And I've just been very, very blessed. A lot of things just fell into place. You don't dream of the kind of success that I've been lucky enough to have. I guess you just hope maybe someday you can just go down that road and go as far as it'll take you.
In 1964, Connie Smith recorded the Bill Anderson song Once a Day, which went to number 1. Smith went on to record 5 more Anderson penned songs. Cincinnati, Ohio, I Never Once Stopped Loving You, Nobody But a Fool, Then and Only Then, You and Your Sweet Love, and they were all top 10 hits. You're a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Georgia Music Hall of Fame, Georgia Broadcasters Hall of Fame, South Carolina's Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. You've had numerous CMA awards, ACM awards, BMI awards, and the list goes on and on. How does it feel for you to be so honored by your peers? I mean, that's the body of work that you have completed and it shows by how your peers feel about you. And that has to be an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it is. If I've done all that, no wonder I'm so tired.
You deserve to be tired.
You made me tired just reading all of it. Yeah, that is when your peers accept you, you know, and I worried about that for a long time. I knew when I came to Nashville that there was a lot better singers here than me. I knew there was people could write songs just as good or better than me, and I knew that I had to kind of find a little niche of my own, a little place of my own. And fortunately, I was able to do that as a songwriter. And then when I started making records, I stumbled into something that worked for me that I never even thought of, and that was doing the singing and a little talking, recitations on the records. And next thing I knew, they was calling me Whispering Bill.
Yes.
And you know, that was able to give me a little separation from the other people, because I was kind of doing something that nobody else was doing at that time. And I worried about, you know, being accepted. I wanted the people that were here to like me and accept me, and I feel very fortunate that I've been able to make a lot of friends and maintain a lot of friendships over the years with people in the music business and all. And you know, I hate to keep going back and saying I'm grateful, I'm thankful, I'm blessed, but I don't know any other way to describe it. I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and I'm blessed, and I know it.
That's pretty good. Well, let's talk about Tips of My Fingers for just a minute. It was recorded by you in 1960. Then Roy Clark recorded it in 63, Eddie Arnold in 66, Gene Shepard in 75, and then Steve Wariner in 1991. He changed it to Tips of My Fingers, correct?
No, Roy Clark changed it.
Oh, Roy did?
Roy was the first one, yeah.
Right.
Roy had more fingers than me.
All that playing he did. So these were all
So we went
hits.
back and forth. I did Tip of My Fingers. Roy Clark did Tips.
Okay.
Eddie Arnold did Tip. Gene Shepard went to Tips. You know, it's just all over the place. I've come to the conclusion finally that I think Tips of My Fingers is probably correct, and when I do it on stage now, that's the way I do it.
I mean, and I know that it's a hard question to answer, but did you have any idea how great of a song it was when you wrote it? Did it?
No, of course not. You know, when you write a song, all that you know is whether or not you got everything out of that idea that there was in there to get out. If you understand what I'm saying. You don't know if anybody's going to like it. I've written songs that I thought, okay, this is the best I can do. And I thought, well, it'll never see the light of day. And some of those have been some of my biggest hits. And then songs that I thought, boy, there's no way this one can miss. You know, they're still trying to find it in the stack somewhere. So you don't know. All you know is if you've done the best you can do, gotten all out of the idea that you can get out of it, and then the rest of it's up to the public. They either like it or they don't.
In recent years, Bill Anderson has continued to co-write or write many hit records for other artists. Some of these are Two Teardrops with Steve Wariner, Wish You Were Here with Skip Ewing and Debbie Moore for Mark Wills, I'll Wait for You with Harley Allen for Joe Nichols, A Lot of Things Different with Dean Dillon for Kenny Chesney, Give It Away with Jamie Johnson and Buddy Cannon for George Strait, Whiskey Lullaby with John Randall and Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss, and Joey for Sugarland. I asked Bill about his process of writing and how it has changed over the years compared to the early days of his songwriting career. This is what he had to say.
I wrote the first 25 or so years of my career, I wrote nearly everything by myself. I wrote When Two Worlds Collide with that old guy that keeps looking over my shoulder over there. And I wrote a few songs that I didn't write. I did very little co-writing. And then in the mid to late 90s, I realized that if I was going to stay in this game, co-writing was what had really become the big thing in Nashville, where 2 or 3 people would get together and kind of pool their ideas. And so I thought, well, I'll try co-writing. I don't know if I can do it or not. But co-writing has become the main thing that I do today. I still write songs by myself because when COVID hit, you know, co-writing went by the boards because
Right.
you couldn't get with anybody. So I went back and started writing some songs by myself and found that I still enjoyed that. So the process has changed. It's different when you're in the room trying to write a song with one or two other people, and then when you're sitting there by yourself in the middle of the night with the shades pulled down, trying to see how lonesome you can get, and writing a song by yourself.
Listening, you know, I know a lot of writers over the past 40 years or so come down here to downtown Nashville and sit in an office and write. And I didn't know if you still did that till today, and that's what you did today before our
Before
meeting.
you got here, that's exactly what I did. I sat in this very room with two great writers, Red Akins and Ben Hayslip, who are both from the state of Georgia, so we got a little bit in common to start with. And we wrote a little song and actually started on another one, so we're going to get together later on and try again. So, and it's fun. You exchange a lot of ideas and you talk about various things. You spend a lot of time talking about stuff that ain't got a thing to do with songwriting, and then you try to rein it back in, you know. I still love to write. I think that's the main thing. I have never gotten to the point where I didn't want to create, and I love it. I love getting an idea and seeing it come to fruition. I enjoy that just as much as I did 50, 60 years ago.
So what is a writing session like with Bill Anderson? What do you write everything down? Do you record things? I mean, I'm saying this because I know for one, Brad Paisley has a nickname for you.
He calls me Moses.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was over at Brad's house one night. We were working on a song, and he's sitting there with all of his computers and all of his electronics and his guitars and all these foot pedals and all kinds of stuff, recording equipment. And he looks across the room, and I'm over there with a number 2 pencil and a legal pad. And he looks over there at me, and he said, "Moses," said, "when did you quit writing with a hammer and chisel?"
But it works, doesn't it?
It works for me. I write it down with a pencil, not a pen. I write with a pencil because it's got an eraser on it, and I can erase a lot of stuff. I put it down that way first. I'm not totally illiterate with a computer. I'm not a whiz at it, but I go home and put it on my computer and, go through the filing process and all of that. But basically for me, you guys can come in with your laptops and your iPads and all this stuff, but just give me that number 2 pencil and that pad, and I'll write it down by hand. That's just the way I feel the most comfortable with it.
Well, I know the way it was for years. That's what you had. And you had, I know a lot of writers talk about, writing something in the car, and they had to remember what the melody to the song was the next day.
Ask him about how we wrote When Two Worlds Collide.
Same kind of situation.
We wrote that in the car and stayed awake all night singing it so we wouldn't forget it, because we didn't have recorders back in those days.
You've been a game show host, been an actor in a daytime soap opera, One Life to Live.
Are you sure?
Yes, I've seen
Was
it. Co-producer and star on TNN's You Can Be a Star. You hosted Backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, and for 23 years you've been the host of Country's Family Reunion on RFD TV. On top of that, you've authored 4 books. Is there anything that you've haven't done, Bill Anderson, that you would like to do?
I need to give John Anderson back his hat.
That's great.
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I've been so blessed and have been able to do so many things. I just wake up every day and just kind of take it, as the great song says, one day at a time, and try to figure it out. I didn't go after a lot of these things. A lot of these things kind of came after me. I knew nothing about hosting game shows on television. I knew nothing about being in a soap opera, although my life has been a soap opera. Things just happened, and I just, as I said earlier, I kept seeing what was behind door number 1 and number 2 and number 3, and I kind of still what I'm doing.
You continue to perform on the Grand Ole Opry after 62 years. That's great. And you walk out on the stage, and do you still have that feeling of reverence when you walk out to sing?
A combination of reverence and butterflies.
Still?
Yeah. Minnie Pearl told me one time, she said, if you don't get a few butterflies, and she was talking about the Opry, She said, if you don't get a few butterflies, it doesn't mean as much to you as it should. So I don't mind, I don't get nervous, I don't get scared, but I respect the Opry so much, and I respect the audience so much, and I want to do a good job. And I get those little butterflies, and I do. I look at that circle and I think, boy, who all has stood there, and I'm getting to stand there, you know. And there is a certain reverence, and I hope the reverence and the butterflies never go away. I don't want them to go away.
Right. Yeah.
I welcome both of them.
You have been recording here
Yes,
lately.
I made a record last year that got a Grammy nomination with Dolly Parton, and I did a record together called Someday It'll All Make Sense. I've since then recorded several new things, and I can't really divulge anything right now, but I had a very positive meeting yesterday with the people at Universal Records, Universal Music, which is where all my catalog is, and they're going back and releasing a lot of my old records digitally now so they can be streamed and downloaded like everybody's doing with music these days. And so I think I've got a home at Universal for a while. I think we're going to do some more things together, and I'm very excited about that and looking forward to it.
That's great.
And hoping we can do something that the people will like.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us today. You know, it's an honor and a privilege, and I'm so glad you're doing well and you're still out there doing your thing, and we get to enjoy your music. Thank you for spending the time with us today.
Well, thank you for wanting to spend time with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill Anderson, for taking the time to talk with us, and thank you all so much for joining us today on Classic Country Backstories. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to receive notifications on our next episode. Until next time, God bless, take care, and I'll see you later.